Hey, Kelsey and the Rising family. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, I just wanted to share my testimony, and hopefully, this will encourage people who are struggling with this, especially as a child of God who seems to be stuck in this area. So, yeah, I really hope that this will just bring glory to God because He's the one that made everything possible. Um, so, I can, so I just got out of my relationship with my ex boyfriend. I can definitely say that he was the man of my life. We complemented each other in so many ways, so I'm just sharing this just to give you guys context. Um, so, of course, not to over embellish anything, we each carried our own baggages, and I knew what I was signing up for. Um, we met before COVID 19 when the whole pandemic started, and we spent confinement together, so, of course, this kind of crystallized our relationship. And so we were together for almost about 3 years. Um, and we just moved into our apartment this year, January 2022. This was around end of January, and at this time, I was just getting starting to get burned out from work, just losing interest. Suppliers were going bankrupt, management not owning up to not assuming their decisions, teams going in and out, like the turnover rate was quite high. Um, so yeah, just everything was not going well. And this was also the time when my parents stopped talking to me because they did not condone um, my choice. Um, and so yeah, I think just a lot of things converged. And yeah, I haven't been going to church really during the entire time of COVID. Really, pretty much when I started dating this guy. Um, and yeah, I just started to get this pretty low point of this year for me. And I heard like this voice from God saying, "Hey, you got to come back. You got to come back." And it was how do you say, like this voice was like very gentle, but at the same time there was a lot of a sense of urgency with the tone of this voice that I heard. Um, and then the next day, and this happened around mid February, excuse me. And then this guy that I met, I mean, we're just acquaintances, we're just Facebook friends, but nothing more of it. And when I moved to Paris, I went to Hillsong. Now, there's a Hillsong church in Paris. And then I stopped going, obviously, during the COVID period. And this guy named Matt, we just had a good affinity, nothing more of it. And he contacts me out of the blue through Facebook Messenger saying, "Hey, I hope you're doing well. I found this really cool church. I was wondering if you want to come with me." And I was like, whoa, like I didn't even make a list of the churches that I wanted to visit. And so I really took this as a sign. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's pick a date, and then yeah, let's go, let's do it. And then that Sunday arrives, and I don't know what was going through me, but like my body resisted hardcore to not go there. Um, I felt like my mind was trying to find any sort of excuse for me not to go there. And so I was like, whoa. Um, I heard from God saying, "You got to come back." Someone contacts me the next day if I want to go to church, and now I'm feeling this. And so I was like, okay, I need to go there. This is a sign. In fact, this is a confirmation, a double confirmation that I need to go there. And so I went with Matt, and nothing really clicked for me the first time I went there. Like the music, the message, the vibe. I mean, just nothing really stood out to me. But strangely, I felt that I should try it a couple more times. Like I felt drawn to this place. I really couldn't explain it. And Matt, he's a barista, and so he rarely gets Sundays off, and so I started going there by myself eventually, kind of ghosted me. And me being quite a shy person, like when service was over, I'll just bolt out of there, I'll just go home. And then, and of course, over time, I started to get involved in the house churches. And I go to one in English and one in French. And both times my body resisted not to go. Like, same thing, my mind tried to find any sort of excuse for me to not go. And so the fact that this happened to me 3 times with this church, I was like, okay, I think this is where God wants me. This is where He wants me to be. Um, and also, just to give you another context, during this time, the war in Ukraine was intensifying, and because of this geopolitical conflict, my project was halted. So the project that I was working in was based in Finland, was constructed in Finland, but we were collaborating with the Russians for the nuclear technology. And yeah, so my contract. So I'm a consultant. So my contract with this client was about to close for the end of July. Um, and so it's so strange. So like from June and July, I literally got paid to do nothing. And what I'm going to share with you, it's like it was such a perfect timing because this allowed me to process what I was going through, what I have felt, what I have observed, and also a time for me to really dedicate to pray, just to seek God and what He wants, what He wants from me and for me. Um, and yeah, so this is just to give a context of how my professional life was aligning with what I was going through and how God was orchestrating all of this. Um, and so in this church I still go to this church. There are pastors that rotate, but one Sunday, I was actually chatting with people at the end of service, and the head pastor was approaching me, and I kind of freaked out. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he approached me saying, "Hey, I was wondering um, if I was wondering if I could get to know you a little bit more better over lunch." And we agreed to meet on the first Wednesday of June, which happened to be June 1st. And his name is Fred. And 3 days before this date, which was a Sunday, it was Fred's turn to speak that day. And the church that Sunday was quite packed. And I was sitting a couple rows back diagonally from Fred, where he was speaking in the center up front. And the bizarre thing was that between me and Fred, there was nobody sitting between him and I. Like, I had a clear view of him. And a couple minutes into the preaching, all of a sudden, I saw like a cloud that descended over his head. And then I saw like flames in his eyes, and then out of his mouth, I saw like a sword that came out of his mouth when he was speaking. And I kid you not, I was not partying. I did not party the night before. I was not drunk. I was not sleep deprived. Like I was alert. And I think I did this like a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating, but like it lasted for a good 30 seconds. And then I was like, oh shit, like this is Jesus. Um and it's so strange, like as I was seeing Jesus through Fred, I heard like a voice saying to me, Richard, when you meet with him this week, you can trust what he shares with you. And if you read in the beginning of the book of Revelation, this is what was described about Jesus, of him having long flowing white hair, well, flowing, I don't know, but long, like white hair, glowing, flaming eyes, and a sword coming out of his mouth. So yeah, I was sure that this was Jesus, like this was him intervening in that situation, or I would say speaking to me in that situation. And so yeah, and then as the day was approaching when we were supposed to have lunch, like I was a bit anxious, and I was like, I just cannot have lunch with them to have small talk. Like I know something is going to come out of this, like I just know it. And so we meet at a restaurant, and we start out like any conversation with a new person. We talk briefly about where we're from, etc. what we do, what we have done, etc. Um, and I guess I was a bit direct with my question with him. After a couple of minutes, I told him, "Hey, I live with my boyfriend. This is something I struggled with ever since I was little. Um, do you have peace about a Christian being in this type of a relationship?" Um, and he said, "Richard, I'm fully aware that historically the church was not very present for the LGBTQ community, and we have not done a good job loving people who struggle with this. But to be honest with you, I do not have peace about this from the Lord. Um, but I cannot tell you what to do. No one from church can tell you what to do. It is only Jesus that can give you clarity about this. And it is only through him that you can find the answer. Me or anyone in church can stand beside you and accompany your walk with him, but it is only through him that you can find what you're looking for." And I, for me, I was touched, like, regardless of the fact that it was really hard for me to accept what he said, but at the same time, I could definitely sense that he loved people. Like, there's this genuine sincerity about him. Like, that is something you just cannot fake. Like, I really, like, I sensed that immediately. And I appreciated the fact that he really stood his ground. Like, he was firmly convicted that this is not something uh, that God wanted among his creation. Like, this is just, um, yeah, this is just not part of his plan. Um, and the feeling that I got was, this is not part of his plan. I'll never understand why, but I trust God. He's a good God, and I'm speaking through this by faith alone. Um, like, that is what I felt like when he testified that to me. Um, and strangely, it was like that night, like, I immediately had like this violent lack of peace in my relationship, to the point where I couldn't sleep until like 3 or 4 a.m. And so many things were going through my head. I was like, okay, like, is this from Fred? Is it from like my past? Is it from my parents? I don't know. Like, is it from anybody at church, or is it my subconscious? Like, I was freaking out, and I was just like processing through all of this. And as I was praying, I wanted to be like 200% sure that this was God working in me and not through like earthly circumstances. So yeah. So I'm gonna make a second video because it's gonna be too long for me to upload on YouTube. So sorry, bear with me.